So, we all live in a world where everybody wants to become a well known. Everybody wants to become something they're not. Everybody wants to become famous. Everybody wants to blow up these days. Well, what the hell are you talking about? What does it even matter if you blow up anyway? I mean, what does it matter if you blow up and be successful but sell yourself in the process? Why don't you worry more about, like I'm doing, or do what a lot of other people have done and just become a complete unknown? You see, we're going to talk about Bob Dylan today and the complete unknown of Bob Dylan. So this is kind of a strange world that we live in, and this is this glorious trip about reinventing ourselves in this modern new world. And I'm going to use Bob Dylan as the vehicle to get us there, because recently I watched a thing on Hulu. It was called A Complete Unknown about Bob Dylan. And we're going to talk about this as not as a film review, damn it, but as a lens. Okay, because there's a lot of people out there who struggle with their identity and the performance of whatever it is that they do, and the fame and this dream that comes with this addiction that becomes this kind of self mythology, right? And Bob Dylan didn't change music. He changed himself in real time, in public, on a stage, while the world kind of in a way betrayed him a little bit. And it was a really weird situation. And if that doesn't feel similar in the age of TikTok and YouTube and politics by algorithm and all that good stuff, right? Then you're not paying attention to the real story. You're just not getting a grip on what reality really is. This was a really hard quote. He's not busy being born, is busy dying. I want you to think about that for just a little bit, because this slaps harder than most self help books out there, and certainly goes a lot deeper than what most YouTubers can go, especially in the thought of what we're doing. You're busy dying. Every second you live, every breath you take, you're busy dying. But the most successful lives are the ones that are constantly born again. They're reinvented. They're not wearing a damn shoe that's too small. They're not sitting there thinking about how they can fit into the lens of society or into the narrative or into this group or that group. I don't care. They can call me a Christian, an atheist, a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, whatever. You can call me whatever you want. I really don't care what you call me. Just as the old saying goes, just don't call me late for dinner. But I think we need to rediscover ourselves. If we're going to find our authentic personality and who we are in this algorithm crazed world, we need to understand who we are, and we need to get busy focusing on the business of reinventing ourselves, because one of these days you're going to run out of time. But going back to this stupid film that I watched, and I don't watch a lot of movies. I just don't generally have time for that. But I sat down and I watched this movie at the recommendation of a good friend of mine, and I only take recommendations really from people that I really trust, because I feel like they know me, and they know that I'm not going to sit down and watch Harry Potter or some kind of bullshit, or Star Wars or some bullshit like that. But back to this movie, it follows Bob Dylan from 1961 to 1965 when he was in Greenwich Village, and it follows kind of this journey from the village to the Newport Folk Music Festival. And it's funny because it ends the movie. I'm going to spoil it for you here. It ends right at the moment when Bob Dylan's about to go nuclear, right? When he's about to go off, and he's kind of trades in his acoustic guitar for a Fender, right? And he basically is detonating the entire folk movement's moral compass. He's challenging everything that it is. And I didn't get this movie as a biopic. Okay, I didn't think it was a biopic at all. It was more of a meditation on how hard it is to stay human once people turn you into a symbol. And I thought, there's a lot of people that can do that, whether they're, doing, art or medicine or business and finance, whatever it is. Our jobs kind of turn us into a symbol. And to me, that's the core tension of reinvention, right? Can you change while the world insists on keeping you frozen? Can you reinvent yourself while the world insists on keeping you locked in a freezer, locked in a boxcar? I think one thing I really loved about this movie is that Bob Dylan was not the story. Bob Dylan was the metaphor, right? Bob Dylan, this movie about Bob Dylan and Bob Dylan being the vehicle that got us to tell a story and to understand this story. The story of Bob Dylan between 61 and 65 reminded us of a brutal truth that we are all, every single one of us, are walking brands now. Whether you're an artist, a politician, a doctor, or just a random ass person with a LinkedIn page, you're being watched. You're being categorized. You're being remembered. These things mark you with a brand of time, okay? And the algorithm, look, let me tell you something. They say the internet may not forget. Yeah, eventually the internet will bury you up, but that god dog algorithm won't. It won't. And I think that deep down, if there's one thing that this lecture and this lesson is about, it's probably what it takes, okay, to evolve when people already think that they know who you are or what you do, and kind of how to piss them all off in the right ways. I mean, really. Okay. So, Bob Dylan, if you know anything about Bob Dylan, one thing that Bob Dylan didn't do is he didn't walk into fame. Bob Dylan constructed fame. He built this real persona, if you will, of a real dusty working class drifter kind of. He had kind of Woody Guthrie's bones with maybe Rimbaud's brain, I guess. I don't know. And when people got comfortable with who they were and as a society and as a group, Bob Dylan just he didn't throw bomb into it. He just lit the match and walked away. And that's kind of what he did at this Newport Folk Music Festival in 1965. He just kind of lit the match and walked away. And that's what Bob Dylan did. And in politics, in business, in culture, in medicine, whatever it is, in art, identity is not just self expression, it's strategy today. I mean, you control the narrative, or the narrative is going to control you. It's that damn simple. I've seen it a million times. People trying to, control the narrative, but yet meantime the narrative is controlling them. That's how dumbasses are made in this world. People that let the narrative control them. And we see it all throughout life today. People just they're selling themselves out to be famous or to be loved when they really deep down don't love themselves in the right way. So if we're looking at the culmination of this whole thing, right, of this movie, right, it really goes back to Newport 1965, and that's when Dylan kind of plugs in his electric guitar, and the folk crowd who were kind of his people, right, they kind of lost their mind, right, they booed this guy, and they it was kind of like there was no folk singer named Pete Seeger, and people booed him like he just walked on stage and kicked Pete Seeger's puppy, you know, like he just slapped Pete Seeger in the face, you know, because when you change, people who love the old version of you, believe it or not, guys, gals, they feel betrayed. When you change, people feel betrayed. This happens to everyone in the public eye. It really does. Think of Dave Chappelle. Think of Elon Musk, Taylor Swift to some extent. Obama post 2008. I mean, I'm going to give you an idea. When you do things for yourself and you think that they're going to benefit a larger group of people, you're growing, and growth triggers backlash. But the moment they do, the moment that people start to boo you, the moment they start to throw tomatoes at you, and the moment that they start to boo you, the moment that backlash comes, you know you're doing something real. You know you're doing the right thing. The moment that people aren't buying into your ideas, who cares if they question them? Nobody. That's when you know you're doing the right thing, because people don't like it when there's change. People don't like it. People hate change. Once you make it big somewhere, right? Once you get large in a career, once you get certain levels of promotions or whatever it is, right? Once you get to a certain level, uh, once you get famous, right? Famous for whatever the hell that means, your image starts to outrun your reality, right? And you start kind of falling in love with that. And I think more importantly, people start falling in love with that, right? They start falling in love with that version of you, and they'll defend that version of you harder than they'll defend you as a person. They're not defending you as an individual, you as a creative, you as a doctor, you as a whatever it is that you are. They're defending a version of you that they enjoy, right? And so Bob Dylan had to wrestle with this fact himself, and he had to wrestle himself back from the people who thought that he was some sort of prophet, for a movement, or a prophet for an era or whatever. And in the modern version of this story with Bob Dylan, influencers are performing authenticity on cue, right? They're performing themselves on demand. I mean, they flip on the camera and they're performing. Look at me, I'm authentic. I only use this product because I really do believe in it. I promise you, I really do believe in it. I only endorse things that I feel like works, you know. Um, and it's completely inauthentic. It's completely disingenuous. It's not even real. Okay, and that's okay, because if they want to play stupid, they want to play stupid. And then if you look at this in the political landscape, right? Political candidates are handcuffed to their own campaign slogan, right? They really are. I mean, like, look at Trump. Trump is handcuffed to make America great again. He's a prisoner to that shit. And yet he can't think outside the box. And eventually this train's going to run out. And the minute he pivots, all these people are going to jump off board this train. And that's happened to politicians all throughout the history of politics, throughout centuries. You know, you have to, if you want to beat somebody, get them to change. Get them to change their message. Get them to change their appearance. Get them to change their voice. Get them to change, because then they begin to grow. And when they begin to grow, people begin to either run or embrace it. But eventually, just keeping the same persona, that eventually leads you to one thing: death. Spiritual, physical, mental, emotional death. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is the definition of insanity. How many times have we heard that? Now, fame amplifies our voice from time to time, but it also distorts who we are. So, if there's a message from this whole thing, be careful what you project. Be careful about whatever it is that you're trying to put out into the world. So are you a symbol? What kind of symbol are you? Are you a symbol of rebellion like Bob Dylan? Are you a symbol of authenticity, of a radical coolness? But who is the real Bob Dylan? Let's think about this. Bob Dylan is kind of a weirdo, contradictory. He's private, actually, a very private man. He's very slippery. And as I watched this movie last night, I realized that it sanitized and curated his image because the world, specifically America, but the world doesn't want a complicated truth. They want a clean myth. It's true. The world does not want a complicated truth. They want a clean myth. You know, you can get an education online, go and, just get your education. Earn your degree from the comfort of your own home in your pajamas. Just make sure you fill out the financial aid paperwork. And then all you got to do is just put in about a half baked effort. Answer two little questions every week, a discussion question, and participate in a bullshit little project. And in, 18 months or whatever, we'll give you a degree. It doesn't mean that degree's useful for anything. It doesn't mean that it is going to make you employable. It just means you got a piece of paper and you could answer two questions a week and participate in a discussion by responding to one or two questions a week. It didn't prove that you went above and beyond. It didn't prove anything that you could really think. You met a very minimum standard that probably, let's just be honest, the myth teaches us that anyone can get a degree. Your average middle school student in America today can get a bachelor's degree online. It requires about that much education level to get. And that's pretty pathetic because you're not teaching people how to think. You're not giving them a truth. But the real complicated matter is that's the myth. The myth is that you can earn a degree in your pajamas. You can answer a couple of questions every week, participate in a discussion, leave two little simple replies, and do a basic project. And then we'll give you a degree at the end of it. And then you're going to become immediately employable. Well, that's the myth. The truth is, a real education takes time. A real education takes real exploration. It takes going above and beyond only the basics that you have to do, that you're required to do. Because being a success in life requires you to do more than just the basics. And that's the complex truth. And I think we saw this not just with Bob Dylan, but with people like MLK, Malcolm X, Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan, Steve Jobs. We deify people, but then we erase their flaws because nuance doesn't sell. It's really true. Nuance does not sell. Now, I think going back to this nuance, when Bob Dylan couldn't say what he felt, right? He sang it. He puts his heart into it. Art became Bob Dylan's armor. It became his weapon. It became Bob Dylan's social loophole, the way for him to get out of something. And that's what true creativity does. It lets you slip past the noise and speak directly into the nervous system of the culture or the group or whatever it is that you're in. Look, if you can't change the system, outsmart that son of a bitch. Rewrite the script. If you can't change the system, outsmart that son of a bitch. Make something so honest that it can't be ignored, even if people hate it, even if people challenge it. Be authentic to a fault. If you can do that, you've got half the fucking world beat. So look, you think this is just about famous people, right? People like Bob Dylan or whoever, right? You think this is just about fame and fortune and people who are blowing up on TikTok, right? The truth is, it's about all of us. You curate your own feed. You manage your own. But really, brother, let me tell you something. This is your call to arms, whatever it is you're doing. Everyone has a going electric moment in their life, right? And that pivot scares the hell out of people who thought they knew you, right? I've reinvented myself a million times, from a radio disc jockey to a producer to a journalist to now, studying psychology and all sorts of stuff, PhD work, stuff like that. Studying, with a real goal in mind of eventually getting a PhD in something or other, you know. And they think that people think that they know you and they abandon you and they get pissed off at you because you're different. You're constantly changing, and that's fine. Let them get pissed off because Dylan's genius. They get pissed off because they thought they knew you. And Dylan's genius was not just in writing great songs, it was refusing to play the same song twice. I watched Bob Dylan at Farm Aid this year, 2025. And I think he started off with All Along the Watchtower. Sounded completely different than every other time I'd ever heard him play All Along the Watchtower. Well, this time it sounded really good. Really, really good. Really different. But it sounded really good. And I think too about, the old singer Ricky Nelson, a song called Garden Party. I went to a garden party. They all knew my name. They all recognized me. I didn't look the same. But if you got to play at garden parties, I wish you a lot of luck. 'Cause if memories were all I sang, I'd rather drive a truck. Well, you lose people when you change. But I promise you this much. When you do, you'll find something a lot better: yourself. And what could be more valuable than that? So, this quote, to live outside the law, you must be honest. This is the dagger under the pillow, the pistol under the bed, right? If you're going to reinvent something, really reinvent it. Don't just reverse engineer it. You need to get brutally honest about what you want, what you're faking, and what you're afraid of letting go. You need to get brutally honest with yourself and with everybody else and with the world. Because if Dylan can be honest about all of this, then what are you afraid of? If he can do it, you can do it too. And that's the beauty of it. Don't be afraid. Just keep going. It'll get better in the end. And if it don't, fuck it. At least you die honest. So do you want to reinvent yourself? Do you want to reinvent who you are? Ask yourself this. This is your personal strategy session. And I know it's terrifying, but this is how you go electric. This is how you switch from, simple little folk music like, if I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, to all along the watchtower, this is how you change all of that. This is how you go electric, right? Who am I now? What do I identify as? Who do I want to become in the next 10 or 20 years? What will I have to destroy in order to make that happen? And this is the big one. What will people do? What will they say when I finally do it? At the end of the day, what do you care? What do you care? The reinvention blueprint is magical. And Bob Dylan teaches us about that a lot. Go reinvent yourself. Start right this minute. Ask yourself, who am I now? What do I want to become? What will I have to destroy to make it happen? And what will people say when I destroy it? That's the beauty.